great regret. For it was a great kind of a couple. They enjoyed, they loved one another in a different kind of a way. They were so much romantic. Although they stayed or lived or dwelled not anywhere but in the communal lands, in a place where it was known as a farm of an estate, next to a certain kind of a female who still owned the same kind of an estate, and her name still remained as Rosaria. Rosaria was the great kind of a person who employed the same kind of a man whom I'm talking about. I am talking about Obed, the same kind of a guy who was not married to anyone but to the beautiful kind of a lady who still remained as Charity. So much a great kind of a shape was her body, and her nose were so well pointed like a feasting fork of a princess, and her only kind of her eyes were so lazy like a leopard rocco's eyes, and again her way of talking was so slow like somebody again who is somehow covered with nothing but humiliation, or else something known as the fear of the unknown. So she was someone who was of that kind of a nature in description. Very humble she was, just to decorate everything. They were in love with her own husband who still remained as Obed. They were childless, and again their love, they were in a brand kind of a new love in a few 4 years of being married, and again they were not in anywhere but next to the same kind of an owner who still remained as their own boss. I am talking about the same kind of a boss. Her name still remained as the same name that I mentioned before, and again the same boss, Rosaria, was the same kind of an owner of the same estate which they dwelt in. So Obed used to work for that kind of a boss, and whatever he was doing, he was taking care of grooming the horses of the same kind of a white lady who still remained as Rosaria. She was so humble, so loving, so caring, and somehow what she liked most was to create jokes. What she liked most was to be so jocund, and somehow liked so much comedies, loved to play around with those who were close to her. Her heart was a good kind of a heart, so kind, giving and helpful most of the time. More especially to the same kind of people who still remained as her own workers. I'm talking about Obed and his own wife who still remained as Charity. Again, on another day, another time again, brought another event which is still unknown to you, that whatever will happen to you tomorrow, you don't know what will happen again to you next week, you don't know. So it was in that kind of a darkness, but still having that belief, that faith, that tomorrow is coming, I'll be living, and tomorrow is coming, I'll do this and that. So was that kind of a thought within their own minds. I'm talking about Obed and Charity. And again, I'm talking about Rosaria, the same boss who still again did nothing but took care of his own horses and his own workers, and it was nothing that brought him her income besides the fact that as a widow, for her own husband perished again in another day, in another accident, and she moved on being single and being a widow, and again she took care of the property and everything that was left, and again still benefited a lot from the horses, for they were used to be hired to do races elsewhere, and they were good in racing. And it happened that on another day, another time, another winter, and another summer, another rainy season, in another rainy season, it was raining or about to rain. After a few showers, after a less showers, I'm sorry to say few, after a less showers, and then after those less showers, it stopped raining. Then it was again clear in the sky. After hours and hours again, it became so cloudy. The clouds were so pregnant with water you could see from a distance. You could tell from the darkness that was already surrounding each and everybody, surrounding the whole forest, surrounding the whole estate. And again, in the same estate again. While Opet was moving around, looking and checking this and that this is all right, this is good, this is in good shape. Let I move to the same kind of a place where I could see and search and find out how are the horses and what is happening. It was at that time, while he was still walking, stepping to the same direction, when all of a sudden he could hear a voice of who? A voice of his boss. The voice that was somehow called not anyone but the name Opet. And Opet again looked and found out that indeed who was calling Rosaria the Bobs was calling him to come. But again Opet was about to say, "Yes, madam, hello," but before he could release, before he could let out his voice or his own words, lightning struck and the bolts came to several kinds of direction and all kinds of trees in the orchard, the whole building, the horses, and everything was already struck by the lightning. Peace. There was silence. Fear grabbed and ruled all around the same estate. And some kind of a lightning disappeared to elsewhere. Fear and shock ruled and overruled in each and everybody. From a distance, Charity could be seen somehow, still trying to figure out what is happening outside. How safe is my husband? Where is Opet? Somehow still checking through the curtains, opening to see through a window, but he could see from a distance someone lying down, and again could see no one, but could see the body moving to some different directions, as if he was somehow defecating, but all over again. Rosaria from a distance could not believe her own eyes, as somehow from a distance, from a doorstep, she could turn around and still again weightless, so shocked and frightened, somewhere grabbed and ruled by fear, looking all over, could see nothing but the smoke all over, and again see no reaction or action from the side of her own beloved kind of horses, and again to the same direction of her own house. She could see nothing but blackness. Everything is turned into darkness, dark and again still looking and checking, but again could still look and see no one, but could see from a distance Opet trying by all means to be someone who's crawling down, and all of a sudden to the direction of the same madam who still remained as Rosaria, and again crawling in a fast way, and again next to her, and he stood up and in tears. In tears, they grabbed one another and hugged another, and it was in that time again, from a distance, Charity could be only be seen through her own kind of a window, looking from a distance what is happening, what has happened, and could somehow smell nothing but the same kind of a smell of death, and something is wrong. She got out of her own kind of a room because of whatever she somehow invited braveness, on which the same braveness was well welcomed by her own heart in the same kind of her own liver, and again in her own lungs. She could still feel, let I step further and nearer to them and find out what has happened. Though I have seen, though I have witnessed, though I have already gathered what took place or what happened, but let I go and somewhere, somehow, or be with them and talk to one another about this kind of a thing that is known as a tragedy or what is a natural disaster. I don't know how to call it, but it was in that time that she proceeded, and next to them she was, and again with them they were hugged one another, and again they were all in tears. Peace. No word to say to one another, but again each and everybody has already seen that it has already happened, while they were still again somehow trying to console, to understand the way of nature, to understand or misunderstand, judge or misjudge the same kind of a natural disaster. But why? And the same kind of questions still remained within their own hearts to one another. But why to us? But why in this estate? But why here? But why this time? But why again in this life can this kind of a circumstance, a tragedy to us? Why to us? Those questions will still remain without anybody to answer or to bring any solution as a correct answer to the same questions. They were much grieved with fear, and all of a sudden they could see from the direction or from the side, or from the position of the same side where the horses were. They could see only one horse coming out of the same place where they were and coming to the same direction where they were. And again, the same horse still remained, the same horse that was named by Charity, for she was given that kind of a privilege to name that horse by herself. Rosaria, the same horse. Please, can you name this horse because I love you here so much. The way I love her is more like the same I love you again, Charity. So I'm giving you this kind of a privilege to say, please, can you let the name be given to her, for it was her. Then she gave the name to the same kind of a horse, and the same horse still came, and again the same horse came to them, and the same horse again not to anyone, and again next to Charity the same horse stood, and again it was in peace, and Charity still remained so silent, and she touched the horse, touching the horse on its own head somewhere, playing with its own ear, and again calling its name, calling the name of the horse, and the horse again is still in the same place, and it was in that time again. More and more and more pain pierced through the heart of some person who still remain as Rosaria, being the owner of the horses, being the owner again of this estate that has already been struck by lightning, being the same owner of the same property that is already in darkness because of the own kind of the reasons of the same kind of lightning that somehow it chose that estate. For what reason? I still don't know. I still remain empty, and again they still remained empty. And the same horse remained with them. And it was that time that each and everybody happened to ask one another, why is Stimboko coming to me? Especially, okay, let me say, why is Stimboko coming to us? That was Charity's voice, asking her own husband and asking Rosaria, their own boss, why is Steinbok coming to us? Besides that question, but I'm still asking, why is Steinbok still alive? Why her life has been spared? Why Steinbok? Besides all we have seen, we have already gathered and witnessed that all the horses, they are all down and they are already been struck by lightning. It doesn't need any proof or any other way to go and shake, but we can see that indeed it's already a tragedy, it's already a great kind of a natural disaster, but as it is, why this kind of a horse? Why coming to me? And again, I am the one who gave this horse a name, and again, it doesn't know, but does it know that I am the one who gave it the name? But I never called it, but it came to me, and again, why is it the one that is the only one that has been spared? And all over again, I'm still asking, this has never happened, that in amongst all horses, as they were still alive, that one day or on another day, the same kind of a horse who still remained as Steinbok moved from all other horses and came to me or to us. But why right now? Why here? Why now? That kind of a question still was the same question. To Obed was still the same question again in Rosaria's heart. And again, still a Charity expected an answer. But there was no answer, no word. But she never knew that the same person who still remained as her own husband, and the same boss who still remained as Rosaria, they still had the same questions within their own hearts. And it was at that time when in tears, Rosaria could be seen opening her own thick lips, which were so much smooth as oil. And again, somewhere somehow wiping her tears, trying to open up her own thick lips to say a word which somewhere somehow still had nothing but a great kind of a message. It has happened. There is nothing we can change. It is painful. You don't know how painful I am, but I am in great pain. But there is nothing I can do. It's been 2 years. I lost my husband in an accident. For I've kept everything that he left for my life. But now, everything has been taken away. And again, it was at that moment that Obed could not do anything, but somehow still sympathize and try to comfort her. So did Charity as they tried to comfort her, but she opened up her own heart to release the pain within her own heart. This is the end of my life. Whatever I had has already ended here. For this horse, I'm gonna leave it with you, Obed. It is yours. For I've got nothing to give to you, but this is what I will give to you. And for the same kind of a house that your wife is coming from right now will still remain as your own place. And again, the same kind of an estate, as big as it is, and every machinery and every truck and every kind of a fruit tree inside will still remain in this farm, and again I give everything to you. And all over again, what I know is that you love your wife Charity. So I wish you all the best. And this is what has come in my own mind. And I've taken it as a decision that I'm about to leave to a far away place. For I know, yes, all my documents have been already into ashes. And still again, I know all the property again is already into ashes. But somewhere, somehow, I know there's going to be a light or a way or a channel, a path that will lead me to where I am thinking of going to. For I'm sorry, I'm to say I am thinking, I've already thought and I've already made a decision to say let I go. And I'm about to leave. I'll give you all the documents for everything. And again, tomorrow will be my last day. I'm gonna go and do the change of ownership. So everything belongs to you, Obed, and to you, Charity, because you are husband and wife. Or you will inherit or take everything, and they will do it lawfully. For it was in that moment that they thought that things are happening in a way of thinking, is this reality? What has entered her? What is it that has brought this kind of a decision in her own mind? But they never knew what was going on within her own heart. And again, she had made it as a decision. So they slept not anywhere in the room where Charity was coming from, where Obed and Charity used to sleep, and so did Rosaria slept on the floor, and again covered or somehow with nothing but the great kind of an atmosphere that the same room, the same house was spared by lightning. For what reason, I still don't know, and they never knew, and again they slept in. As the day brought another day, which still comes as a tomorrow to them, everything was done in a right way. And somehow the duplicates that she has will still remained as photocopies of her particulars, were not anywhere but were with Obed, and Obed took them in his own room, on which in the same kind of a trunk they opened, they found all those photocopies of her own documents, and again her original passport was in there, and again all other different kind of original documents were in there, and other copies, and she had other documents in her own room. And it was in that time again that the night wasn't so short or so long, but being the moderate kind of a night that was accompanied with, or surely muchly rich with the questions which were still empty without any answer. For they asked one another, but again no one responded in a good kind of a different kind of an answer, without any answers to life, to why this kind of a circumstance, this kind of a tragedy to us. And the separation still remained, being the fact that Steinbock never went to where other horses were, which still were dead horses, but Steinbock was left by the mate, by the doorstep again. So did the night moved so slowly, was so moderate, like a jackal during the night. So they took over to the other direction, and the other direction brought nothing but a great day. After years and years, the same horse, Steamboat, the same person, Charity, the same guy, Obed, being the same people, and again being the same kind of estate, and again the same kind of an estate has been already built up and already has been renovated, and somewhere somehow things have reshaped in a good direction, and somewhere somehow in the same kind of a big estate there is nothing but only one kind of a horse who still remain as a she kind of a horse who still remain as a Steamboat. And one of the days it happened that while Obed was busy feeding a Steamboat and somewhere somehow grooming her in a different kind of a way, while listed in the other side of life, Charity was busy somewhere in a washing line, taking out the clothes which were already dry. She was ready to go and iron them and pack them so nicely for her own husband to be so clean in another next day for a certain kind of a meeting with someone else. And it was in that moment, while she was still taking the clothes off the line, that she heard nothing but noise, a great kind of a cry from the same kind of a man who still remained as Obed, for he was kicked by the same horse, and his own kind of a face was taken to another direction as the nose were looking to from another direction, and still again left hanging in the other kind of a direction.